she wasn't going to budge on her point. And so I just decided, and we all decided as a family, that it didn't matter. Hey guys, it's Hope. Welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be diving more into the service dog access issues. So today we are going to talk through 7 best practices that I think help to make a service dog access issue a little bit better, a little bit less stressful. I've had my guide dog for 6 years now. I've been through, I think, my fair share of service dog access issues. And so far, I have pretty much been able to get my dog into every facility. I've been able to talk my way through the service dog access issues. And so I'm hoping that I can use my experience to help you to better equip yourselves to handle service dog access issues, whether you're going into it for the first time or you're just looking for new tips for your 30th time that you're going into it, because these can be stressful. And I think sometimes having a checklist of best practices can be helpful to make sure that you're going into it with the right mindset. So let's talk through it step by step. Tip number 1. Don't forget to breathe. As soon as I walk into a space and someone tells me, you're not allowed to have your dog here, I automatically go into fight or flight mode. And that is very, very normal because it is a very anxiety-inducing situation. As soon as those words are said, the environment, the atmosphere goes up. Everything escalates. It feels stressful. And sometimes I feel like I'm being denied. My disability is being denied. Everything about me is being denied because I can't bring my mobility aid into the restaurant, the facility, the store, wherever. So automatically everything's going to escalate. So the first 2 things are breathe. Tip number 2 is to stay calm, because when everything escalates, the worst thing that you can do is to escalate it even more. As soon as those words, your dog is not allowed here, are said, it automatically raises the tension in the room. Instead of raising the stress and the tension even higher, which can make it harder for you to talk your way through situations, just breathe. Stay calm. And then tip number 3, before you go into a situation, know your rights. And I think that this will help you to remain calm, because I know that when I was first going through these issues, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to say, and I wasn't completely aware of all of the rights that I had. I wasn't sure what I could say or what I could ask for. And so that made it even worse, because now we've got this escalated situation and I couldn't calm it down because I didn't know what to say. So before you go into a situation or before you get a dog, know what your rights are. In the United States, a service dog is supposed to be a dog that helps you to mitigate a disability by doing a task. That includes autism, psychiatric alert, medical alert, guide dog, deaf alert dog. All of those categories of dogs are considered service dogs. And they are also highly trained to be anywhere that the public is allowed to go. So that doesn't include private properties, private clubs, and also any safety and liability concerns like an X-ray room, an ICU, things like that. Those are the exceptions to the rule. But anywhere that the public is allowed to go, the service dog is generally allowed to go. Also, there are no service dog IDs that are required for you to carry. As a matter of fact, in the United States, service dog IDs really don't exist. and the ones that do aren't necessarily official or authentic, as you can go online and buy a service dog ID for $60. A business can only ask 2 questions in the US. Number 1, is it a service animal? And number 2, what task or behavior is it trained to perform? Those are the only 2 questions that they can ask. Once they're done with those questions, they should just let you in. Before they even ask those 2 questions, I typically try to answer them. For example, when I went into the Italian restaurant and the guy said, "You're not allowed to have your dog in here," I immediately said, "This is a service dog. He's my guide dog. He actually helps me to see because I'm legally blind, so he helps mitigate my disability by making sure that I stay safe in my spaces and navigate safely in my environment." So that's how I answer the question, so that he doesn't have a chance to ask those 2 questions. But a lot of times they will just go ahead and ask the 2 questions, and that's okay too. Tip number 4, keep and have an open dialogue. So that means that when you're having these conversations, you want to keep it as open as possible. So keep an open mindset, keep an open voice. So don't sound hostile, don't try to force the law. Be very open. Keep your voice in like an education voice or a customer service voice. So rather than saying something like, "He's my service dog and under federal law, you have to allow him in," I might say something like, "Well, actually, he's my service dog, and so under federal law, you do have to let him in because it is a public access space, so you are required to let him in by law." That's a little bit different because then it allows room for questions, right? So the way that my voice sounds, because it's pitched up, because it's more customer service vibes, they might be willing to ask a few more questions or have more of a conversation with you. That's not always the case, but I found it to be the case for the most part in my situations. Tip number 5. Try to be accommodating when you can and try to compromise when you can. For example, when I went to Panda Express and they asked me for his ID, I have service dog ID that I got from my guide dog school. It's not necessary, it's not even legitimate, but it would help to get me into the restaurant so that I could have a nice meal with my friends, rather than standing at the counter arguing for 15 minutes. So I used it as an opportunity to educate. So compromise, even though you know your law, even though you know that the law says that businesses are not allowed to ask for your service dog ID, compromise where you can. And then use it as a teaching moment, use it as an educational moment. So what I said was, "Okay, here's his ID. I'm willing to cooperate with you right now, but just so you know, this is illegal under federal law. You're actually not allowed to ask for ID, but I'm going to cooperate with you today, so don't worry. Here's his ID. Here you go, but just so you know, it's illegal for the future." And so that's what I did. And that allowed me to get into the restaurant without any hassle, but it also allowed me to teach them something, which then they went back and actually changed their policy. So the next time that I came in, they didn't ask me for service dog ID. Tip number 6, walk away if you can. What I mean by that is if you can leave a situation and it's okay for you to, then just go ahead and leave. A perfect example of this is we went to a beach as a family. It was a private beach because it was only for that subdivision. So we got to the beach, we get out of the car, I put on his harness, and a beach club employee walked up to us and said, "You're not allowed to have your dog here." And so I responded with my customer service voice, "Well, under federal law, you are required to let him in. He is a service dog. He's my guide dog. He helps to make sure that I stay safe as I'm legally blind. So under federal law, you do have to let him in." And she's like, "Doesn't matter. This is a private property. I'm not letting you in." And rather than arguing the situation, because it didn't matter, We weren't gonna do anything special on the beach. And as a matter of fact, private property is one of those entities that don't necessarily have to follow ADA. And I wasn't going to say, oh, this is private property or this is public property. I wasn't going to fight that. And I didn't need to. And so rather than trying to get into a whole conversation with her, and I knew that she wasn't going to budge on her point, and so I just decided, and we all decided as a family, that it didn't matter. So we just walked away and went, further down the lakefront where there was grass instead of the beach area. And so we just hung out over there instead, and it wasn't a problem. So if you can, and if it's really not that big of a hassle, just walk away. Another perfect example of this could be a restaurant. If I were ever denied access, which I have not been yet, thankfully, but if I were ever denied service dog access into a restaurant, instead of trying to fight it or whatever, I might just consider walking away, because if I've had a conversation with them, if we've involved management, if all this stuff has happened and nothing is moving and nobody is willing to give an inch, then I might just leave and say, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else where I know that they'll allow me in. Now, there are situations where you can't do that. I have never been in one. But if you have been in one, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, how you dealt with it, and how it went in the comment section. Let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear your stories. I will read through your comments, so tell me your stories. Last tip, practice your wording. Before you go to somewhere or do something, I would recommend just practicing a few times what you're gonna say, how you're gonna say it, how you want it to sound, so that when you do have these issues, as shaky as you are, as stressed as you are, you can just whip that spiel out of your head and just run with it and not have to think about it too hard. So those are my 7 tips for success when dealing with service dog access issues. Again, these can be difficult, so please feel free to give any other words of wisdom or tips that you think might be helpful to our small community. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, have an amazing day. I hope that your day is filled with the best friends that you can have, that you have a party or go somewhere fun with your friends and just hang out for a night. I just hope that you have an amazing time with your friends, whatever you guys decide to do. All right, bye everyone.